Hey there, Wormwooders. That makes no sense anymore. Sovereign folk? That actually means something else in America. Very, very different. Okay, hi, I'm Damon. I am the designer of Sovereign Fall of Wormwood, and it's been a hot minute since we put a video out. Things have changed. The world is in chaos. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. I want to talk about some good stuff first, some exciting stuff, and then we will get into the nitty-gritty of that in detail. So first off, during the campaign, lots of people were talking about their fervent desire to have a solo mode for Sovereign. I said at the time that there probably was no way I was going to be able to design that not only do I not really play solo games, this might be a game that is impossible to create a solo mode for. During and after the campaign, lots of people got on the Discord and started working together to try and create solo modes as a community, which we think is awesome, and I definitely think you should keep going with. But we have also created a solo mode. So this is the cooperative or solo version of Sovereign. It is called the Nephilim. I have referenced this a few times in the stories. This is the Nephilim. It was always planned to be a one versus many deck, potentially, or just another faction deck at some point in the future. I think this works great as a cooperative, automated opponent that completely changes the way we play. So let's take a look at how this thing works. So right now, what we've got here is a very, very rough prototype. This is an alpha of an alpha prototype for how this thing works. I'm amazed that this thing functions considering how early in development we are. This is 70 cards. Within that, you've got 24 energy cards, 24 materials, and then the rest of the cards are split into components and weapons, pieces of the Nephilim, okay? So what is this thing? It is a massive machina creature. It's not sentient. It's just the biggest thing that this planet has, much bigger than the behemoth. It is like a combination of like a mechanical animal and like a gray goo disaster event where it just sort of like ingests all of the possible material in its surrounding environment and then uses that as sort of a mobile factory to construct more of itself. And add weapons and fun things onto it. When you play, what you do is you set it up like a normal deck, and it looks a little bit like a player. So we've got cards that look kind of like a leader and kind of like a citadel here. We call them the Rook Core and the Queen Core. But the Nephilim has some key differences. The Rook Core and Queen Core both have armor and attack on them, and we'll certainly work on making these more indicative with actual graphic design. But they can attack and defend themselves from the very first turn of the game. What you're looking at right now is the built-out Nephilim. So this is a Nephilim that is like maybe a third of the way through the game. It's already built some parts to it. It'll start as just a Queen Core and a Rook Core. After every player's turn, cooperative players will take their turns as normal, and then at the end of the turn, they will draw 3 cards off the top of the Nephilim deck, and that will show exactly what the Nephilim's about to do. So if it draws an energy, it will attack you. If it draws a material, it will build. And if it draws a component or a weapon, then those will go into the build queues on one of the 2 sides of the Nephilim. So let's see what we've got here. We've got an energy, a second energy, and a material, all right? So the 2 energy, we're going to use those to attack. 2 energy means that the Nephilim will attack this turn. It'll attack the player who just ended their turn and drew off the Nephilim deck. The material, though, it needs 2 material to build, so it's going to take that material and put it aside and store that to make it easier to build on the next turn. When the Nephilim attacks, it attacks you with both sides, if it can. So it'll first attack your hand and look for echoes there by drawing face down a number of cards equal to whatever its breach value is. If it attacks your forge, the Nephilim can see into your forge. Just like all Machina creatures, it has the ability to connect with echoes. So it can see into the forge, and if it can get through, then it uses its breach to just pluck echoes directly out of a player's forge. A Rook Core or Queen Core alone won't attack a player with a defense, so it won't do like a suicide run on you if you have defenses up. That's basically it. Otherwise, it works exactly like a player. Its cards are specialized so that you don't have to make choices with its cards. So it will simply run at you and run your gauntlet. It has special abilities, but none of them require them to be triggered at any specific time. It also has things that are similar to facilities, but again, they're not triggered by citizens. They just happen, right? So its facilities here, when they're built out, we have an example of an antenna array and armored scales. This side gives it +1 breach value. This side gives it +1 armor. You don't have to think about those other than reading them when it attacks you. And when you attack the Nephilim, so let's say you're making a run on the Nephilim, you have to run the gauntlet as usual. You get down to the breach, and when you breach, now you have a choice. You can either discard cards off the top of its deck, or you can damage some of its components in the back here. Its components also have health, just like everything else in the Nephilim. Every card in the Nephilim has a health value. How do we win? How do we win the solo/cooperative mode? All you have to do is either forge 10 echoes per player, not per each player, but say for a 2-player game, you have to forge 20 total echoes, or you can deplete its deck down to 0. And I guess that most of the time, if you're going to win, you're going to deplete its deck to 0. It wins, just like a player, by scoring 10 total echoes. So this is in a very early stage, but I'm really excited about it. It works surprisingly well, or it functions surprisingly well. Difficulty is a little up and down because we haven't done any real balancing yet. But we will be putting up an alpha very soon for print and play and for Tabletop Simulator so that you can check out this mode and play it either solo or cooperative and test it and give us feedback on exactly what you think is working and what you think is not working, particularly as far as the difficulty goes, because this is not something that we are good for. We don't play a lot of we play lots of cooperative games. We don't play a lot of solo games. I don't know exactly how that difficulty should shake out. So you let me know if it's too easy, too hard, and that can be easily tweaked because it's basically just the deck size, the draw pile. Super cool. Very low upkeep, very quick resolution. Also really cool in the cooperative mode. I'm sure you've played 3 and 4 player games and you've noticed that there's a lot more interesting like diplomatic interactions between players, particularly in the 4-player mode where you might have an ally at any given time, where you can use your faction abilities or your facility abilities on other players to give them advantages. I love this. I use this all the time. I think that's one of the best parts of this game. This is so much more useful in the cooperative mode, where you need to be able to use your leader power, you need to be able to use your faction abilities, definitely need to be able to use your reflexes on your friends to keep from being absolutely steamrolled by the Nephilim, which generally moves faster than you. So that's really fun. All right, so let's talk about tariffs. We were in a holding pattern for a little while. We didn't know whether the tariffs were going to go up or down, whether they were even going to exist in a couple of weeks. Hey guys, suddenly the audio is not very good and the video is a little odd. During the period of time we are editing this video, the tariffs have changed again. So we were about to say the number that the tariffs were, and then they changed by more than 100%. So I'm now saying that we can't say with any authority that we know anything, and that there is any way to know anything for the future, foreseeable future. I think it's best to just read the numbers that have happened so far. So on January 1st, it was 0%. On February 1st, it was 10%. On March 3rd, it was 20%. On April 2nd, it rose to 54%. On April 8th, it was 104%. And then on April 9th, it was 145%. And then today, it is 30%. And potentially, when you are watching this video, it will still be 30%, but there is no guarantee that that's going to happen. So we will continue to keep you as updated as we can keep you. But just in the time it takes us to make these updates, the tariffs have a tendency to change. So I don't really feel comfortable in making some kind of sweeping statement like we can suddenly refund everyone, hooray, the tariffs are over, as tomorrow this could all change again. So we still need to talk with our distributors and figure out exactly what the plan moving forward is and how to make sure that this is, that we don't keep charging and uncharging people just because America is in turmoil.
Tentatively optimistic.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about how board games are manufactured, about where the costs come in, what actually adds most of the costs into a board game. Nearly everything in America is manufactured in China, all right? Basically, China is better at doing what we're asking for in terms of toys and games and many other things, including electronics. The expertise required to make games at the level that we have been expecting in this hobby does not exist in America. It does not exist in the UK. It does not exist in Vietnam. It does not exist anywhere but China. They have been basically building up a manufacturing industrial base and an expertise base for creating and printing these games at scale that far exceeds anything that we have in this country. It's not that we don't have game manufacturers in the United States. We do. But they're either 10 to 20 times more expensive, or they are more expensive and don't have nearly the same level of quality. And that means quality across the board. Quality of cards, quality of basic components, wooden pieces, painted pieces, plastic pieces, boxes. Rulebooks we can do. We can do rulebooks. That's about all we can do. We're pretty far behind, and even if we want to get up in our expertise, we still have to buy all of our manufacturing equipment from China. So even if somebody wanted to create a facility to manufacture a product like Sovereign in the United States, they would still have to pay the tariff initially to get all of the printing and factory requirements on a boat, bring them over here, and put them into this country and hope that the tariffs stay so that they don't end up getting completely annihilated as soon as the tariffs drop back down to zero, and now everybody goes back to China and decides to print with them because they are simply cheaper. So, what does this mean for Sovereign? Hopefully, you've seen the emails. You've seen that we are covering 54% of the tariffs, which we said we would, because that was the original tariff rate, and that people are paying 91% tariff on top of that. So what exactly does that mean, and how much money does a game actually cost to manufacture, right? So here's what costs money. Sovereign ends up costing a little bit over $10 to produce per copy. That's its actual production cost. Like, if we were selling it next door to the factory, that's potentially what it could be sold for, maybe. I don't know, something like that. That cost is just the cost of what it takes to print the cards and shove them into a box, close the box, and seal the box, basically. That's our manufacturing cost on that side. But the game definitely doesn't cost $10, right? And no game really costs $10 at this point. Games largely cost between $60 and $80. So what costs money initially? Well, we have our sunk costs for art and graphic design. In a normal game, you would have design costs, so production and design costs for your prototypes. The designers get paid. In this case, we don't get paid, so that's out. That's out of the equation. But we do have costs for prototypes. Our prototypes are quite expensive, and we have to make a lot. In this case, it's basically recouping 10 years of prototyping. Then we have manufacturing costs. So we have a per unit cost. In this case, it's a little over $10, but there's also tooling costs, prototype costs, and safety testing. So every proof copy we get, we have to pay for. All of our QA prototypes have to be covered. Tooling costs are for anything that is cut or molded that has to be a template for, say, anything that's punched out, or like if we had little plastic pieces, that could be that. That would be our bag or our acrylics. Those are also going to require tooling costs, and we have to pay an upfront cost for all of that to be created and stored. So the forwarding cost is getting this game to a boat or to a truck and moving it to a warehouse where it can then be distributed out from there. This is also a huge cost. Moving the game halfway across the world, and certainly getting it into a port in the United States and then getting it from that port to people's homes is quite expensive. And some of that is covered by you, but most of that is covered by us. Getting shipping containers and moving it across the ocean is going to cost a lot of money. But the tariffs are actually affecting the manufacturing cost. So the tariffs are 145% on the manufacturing cost of the game. So whatever is done in China, that's what's being tariffed at 145. So in our case, it's around $15-ish that we have to pay in tariffs per game. That is an enormous sum of money when you consider that games have to be printed at scale. So even though we sold 1,700-ish games on Kickstarter, we have to print 5,000 games because that's just what factories make. They make them in batches, and those batches have minimum order sizes. Usually that minimum order size is 5,000-ish to get a reasonable price per cost. So that's how we get this down to $10 a copy, is by printing 5,000 of them and praying that we're going to be able to sell another 3,300 games as soon as it gets back into the rest of the world. So when we created the Kickstarter, we knew that we would probably not make any profit on this game, unless it made an absolutely staggering amount of money. After the Kickstarter finished, we looked at all the costs and we're like, oh, we actually might make a small profit here. Like, we're talking very small, but enough that we weren't going to lose money on the Kickstarter. Most people who do board game Kickstarters do end up losing money on that, regardless of what their actual stated costs are. That's just so that they don't have to mortgage their house, basically. After the tariffs were 54%, we took a look at everything and we're like, okay, well, we're not going to make a profit, but we can rework things a little bit to make sure that we're still at least breaking even. But at 145%, there is simply no way to do that. It is just such a ludicrous amount of money that you would be paying in tax. There's no way you can make any sort of leeway in paying yourself as well as paying for your product, which is the end goal, of course, eventually for our company, would be to not just pay for the games, not just pay for the overhead, and not just pay for the conventions, but also pay ourselves to live, right? That's what we're dealing with right now, basically, with the tariffs. We can get these games out now, and the next year basically will be spent trying to make sure we can actually get the expansions out as well. You've seen many companies dealing with this in different ways. Some folded immediately, which is sad. I've seen a lot of companies just go down with the ship because they were already working on such thin margins, and they had already taken out so many loans that have to be repaid, that the idea that they need to wait another 2 or 3 years for these tariffs to go away is too much to ask. And they simply say, well, then I guess we're out of the board game making business. Some companies immediately charge for tariffs. There were a lot of interesting threads on Board Game Geek talking in really intelligent ways about how it is actually more the responsibility of a publisher to tell you and charge for the tariffs to make sure that they keep themselves alive, because by buying a game on Kickstarter, you are investing largely in an ecosystem. And if you want more expansions and you want more things to come out for this game, or you want more games from these people, in our case, Ixion Gameworks, then we have to be charging those tariffs from here on out and making it really transparent why it's going to cost more for Americans. So that's the tariff talk. Thank you for everybody's understanding. Our community is so wonderfully positive and ready to step up in defense of the things that they love, that I am really floored, and thank you for that. We will continue to be as transparent as we possibly can be, both about the manufacturing and creation of the game, as well as about any costs you guys have to pay for anything we ever make. We want you guys to know exactly why it's happening, and make it fair for everybody involved, because that's what we really want in this industry, right? Community. So we've got 2 conventions coming up. We've got Origins first, and then Gen Con. We will be going to both. We'll be having events for Sovereign at both. The actual schedule for when we'll be there and when you can come check the game out, or just come talk to us, will be posted to the Kickstarter updates, as well as to our email list updates, and potentially on the Discord right after that. So make sure you take a look if you're going to any of those upcoming conventions. So thank you for watching, for keeping up with Sovereign, for all of your feedback. And we will be back, hopefully shortly, with our second unboxing for our finalized proof for absolutely everything. So be sure to check that out.